The alarms were still ringing when Hale realized he was the only human left standing. The royal corridor shook again, dust falling like gray snow from the cracked ceiling. Blue lights flickered. Sparks spat from broken panels. The air smelled like burning metal and panic. Somewhere far down the hallway, he could hear heavy footsteps, enemy boarding troops getting closer. And right in front of him, half hidden behind a column of shattered crystal, was the one person he could not allow to die. Princess Lyra of Solaries. Didn't know why she was looking at him that way, wide-eyed, breath trembling, as if she had known this moment would come, as if she sensed something terrible he hadn't yet understood. "Your Highness, we need to move," said. His voice came out rough. He didn't notice he was shaking until he felt the butt of his rifle rattling in his grip. Lyra didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." "Yeah, well," he huffed, "neither should the people trying to blow up your ship." Another explosion rocked the corridor. This time the princess flinched. Her long silver hair, glowing faintly under the emergency lights, swung around her face. Her eyes, violet, bright, otherworldly, pressed into his like a silent plea. Then she said something he did not expect. "They're here for me, specifically." Froze. "What?" Lyra swallowed. "I didn't want to tell anyone, not yet, but they're not just raiders or rebels. They want to take me alive." "Alive," repeated. "Why?" She shook her head. "I don't know." But she did know, could see it in her expression. She was hiding something, something dangerous, and the enemy knew it too. Before he could ask more, the lights suddenly died. The hallway fell into darkness. A cold shock sprinted down spine. Not blackout. Not damage. Something had killed the power. He switched on his visor's night mode, scanning quickly. The ship's atmosphere hum felt different, muted, as if something massive had latched onto the hull and was draining energy like a parasite. "They're breaching," whispered. Lyra's voice barely carried. "We're too late." Not if he could help it. He grabbed her wrist, her skin warm against his gloves, and pulled her behind him. "Stay close, don't let go." "But..." "Don't," he looked at her. "You're not dying tonight, understand." Something flickered in her eyes. Confusion, fear, and something else, something softer. But before she could answer, a heavy metallic thud shook the floor ahead. Then another's. Then another's. Raised his rifle, breath held. Footsteps. Not boots. Something heavier. A serrated blade punched through the steel wall ahead, slicing through it like paper. Sparks rained out. A deep, inhuman growl rolled through the corridor. Lyra's hand tightened around his arm. The enemy wasn't using normal soldiers. "They sent hunters," Lyra whispered. Stiffened. "You mean the ones engineered to track anything, anywhere?" Lyra nodded. "They don't stop, they don't quit, and they never leave without their target." "Wonderful." The blade pulled back. A clawed hand wrapped around the torn metal. A tall, armored figure stepped through the shredded wall. Its armor was matte black, its mask smooth and eyeless. Tubes pulsed along its neck, carrying glowing green fluid. Its shoulders brushed the ceiling, far too large to be natural. But what chilled was the way it tilted its head, as if it could smell the princess from across the room. Lyra whispered, "It can sense fear." Well muttered, "It picked the wrong hallway." The hunter charged, shoved Lyra behind the column of broken crystal and fired. The bullets sparked off its armor like raindrops. It didn't slow. "Great armor-piercing would been nice," he growled, diving sideways as the creature swung an arm thicker than his torso. The wall exploded behind him. Shards of metal sprayed the floor. Lyra screamed his name. Rolled, raised his rifle again, and aimed at the creature's head. But it lunged faster than he'd expected, catching him by the chest and slamming him into the ground. Pain exploded through his ribs. His vision flashed white. The hunter leaned over him, its mask inches from his face. Its breathing was mechanical, hollow. It grabbed his neck. Pressure built. Fingers clawed at its wrist, but it was like trying to pry open a steel vise. Lyra cried. The creature turned toward the sound, toward her. And something inside snapped. He twisted, slammed his knee into the hunter's arm joint, and forced his hand beneath its mask. He fired point-blank. The creature's head jerked back, sparks flying, and managed to wrench himself free long enough to drag himself between it and the princess. He didn't even think. Instinct took over. Protect her. Protect her. Protect her. Behind him, Lyra whispered something, soft, scared, and unbelievable. Why are you risking everything for me? Spat Blood raised his rifle again and answered without turning around. Because you're worth protecting. The hunter roared, and the corridor shook as more footsteps echoed in the dark. The second hunter emerged from the darkness before could catch his breath. Its silhouette filled the ruined corridor, massive, hunched, armored in organic plates that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Two glowing slits carved across its mask stared directly at Lyra. It didn't even see. It saw her. Move, shouted. But Lyra didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward. Almost dropped his rifle. Princess, are you insane? Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't waver. They want me, not you. If I step forward, maybe they'll. No, his voice cracked louder than he intended. Lyra, they won't negotiate. They'll take you, and then the entire galaxy burns. Her breath hitched. You don't know that. I know enough. The first hunter recovered, metal muscles flexing as it pushed itself off the shattered floor. It joined the second, both flanking the narrow corridor, claws dragging sparks across steel. Stepped in front of her again, limping, bleeding, shaking, but unmovable. He aimed his rifle. You want her, you go through me. The hunters paused. Not out of fear, wasn't arrogant enough to think that, but confusion. Humans weren't known for standing between hunters and a target, not when the target was a royal whose value could negotiate half a planet. But wasn't thinking about politics. He was thinking about the trembling fingers clutching his sleeve behind him, the way she had stepped forward for him, her guard, when every instinct should told her to run. The corridor suddenly hissed. A security panel flickered alive. A voice crackled through the comms, distorted, frantic, but familiar. Do you copy? Captain Rowan gritted his teeth. I'm here. What's your status? He glanced at the two hunters. Not great. Pods are gone, engineering is breached, if you've got the princess. Confirmed, she's with me. There was a long silence before the captain spoke again. Then your only option is the old observation wing. Section C-19. The enemy won't expect you to go that far inward. Cursed under his breath. That section was half collapsed, more dangerous, less oxygen, no weapons. Lyra heard too, her whisper trembled. It's a dead end. Exactly why it's safer, said. The hunters tensed. They understood the plan, and they didn't intend to let him carry it out. Move grabbed Lyra's hand and sprinted. The hunters roared and charged. The floor shook, the walls trembled. Behind him, herd claws gouging metal like wooden planks. He fired over his shoulder, shots useless but distracting enough to slow them by fractions of seconds. Sometimes fractions were all humans needed. Lyra kept pace beside him, breath sharp, eyes blazing with a strange determination. Not the fragile royal he expected, not the sheltered heir he had been trained to protect. There was something fierce in her, something she didn't show anyone. You okay? Barked. No, she snapped. Keep running. He almost laughed, despite everything. They reached a sealed blast door, slammed his hand against the panel, dead. Of course. Lyra stepped forward, palms glowing faintly. Energy light manipulation, a royal trait. Stand back. Her voice deepened, the air vibrating around her as threads of pale white light pulsed from her fingertips and sank into the dead panel. The circuits glowed, flickered, then the heavy door shrieked open just enough for a person to squeeze through. Stared, when did you learn that? She didn't answer. She was already pulling him inside. The hunters smashed into the corridor just as the door sealed. Collapsed to his knees, gasping. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand brushing his cheek. "Your face, the bruising is spreading." "It's fine," he said, coughing. "Good workout." "You can barely breathe." Her voice broke. That surprised him more than the hunters. He looked up and saw her eyes shining not with fear but anger. Not at him, at the world, at whatever force wanted her captured, at whatever fate demanded a human bleed to keep her alive. "You shouldn't risk yourself like that," she whispered. "I will," he answered softly, "every time." "Why?" she pressed, voice trembling. "I'm not your family, I'm not your people, I'm not even human." He smiled, weak but honest. "I don't need a reason to protect someone worth protecting." Her breath caught. For a moment the ship around them fell silent. No alarms, no rumbling, just the sound of her heartbeat against his shoulder. But the quiet didn't last. Metal tore outside the sealed door. The hunters had found them. And this time they weren't alone. The door shuddered under the weight of something massive. Grabbed his rifle with trembling hands, knowing bullets would only slow the hunters. He cursed the lack of heavy weaponry and the fact that the observation wing was supposed to be empty. Supposed to be. Lyra's hand found his wrist. "They're testing us." His eyes flicked to hers, testing or baiting. A metallic screech echoed down the hall, then another and another. From the shadows, shapes emerged. Sleek, shadowed, far faster than the hunters, they were humanoid but with elongated limbs and crystalline masks. Scouts. Cursed under his breath. This was too easy, way too easy. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes narrowing. "You think they planned this?" "Yes, they always plan this." He pulled her behind a fallen console, chest heaving. Sparks arced around them as the first hunter slammed against the door. Its claws rattled against steel, echoing like war drums. The air smelled of ozone and fear. His breath came fast. Every instinct screamed to run, but not just run. He had to buy time, protect her. "Listen," he whispered. "We have to split them, draw one away, make them think." "I can help." Lyra's voice was sharp, determined. "I can slow them." Turned to her, surprise flashing across his battered face. You can fight them." She exhaled sharply, a white glow pulsing around her fingers. "Not just fight. I can hold them long enough for you to survive." Blinked, "I'm not leaving you." "Then we fight together." Her hand slid over his shoulder. A wave of energy brushed him. Warm, calm, strengthening, something he didn't realize he needed. They ran into the observation wing, a half-destroyed lab with shattered consoles and jagged glass everywhere. Ducked behind a fallen support beam, Lyra beside him. The first hunter entered. Its massive frame filled the doorway, claws ready to strike. It roared, a sound like grinding metal and rage. Lyra stepped forward. "Now." He raised his rifle, firing at the hunter's legs, not to kill but to slow. Sparks showered the floor. The hunter staggered but recovered instantly. Lyra's hands glowed brighter. Threads of white light spiraled outward, striking the floor. Electrical surges shot from the walls, arcs of energy dancing in patterns that immobilized the creature for precious seconds. His jaw clenched. "Nice." But the second hunter appeared from behind a console, faster than they expected. It lunged at with a clawed hand. He rolled, narrowly avoiding the strike, and slammed the butt of his rifle into its head. Metal screeched. Sparks exploded. Pain flared in his ribs, but he didn't stop. Lyra's energy shield flickered under the strain of the first hunter. She grimaced, teeth clenched. "I can't hold it much longer." His mind raced. The exit, they needed an exit, not the way they came, not the way the hunters expected. "Follow me," he shouted, grabbing her hand again. He vaulted over debris, ducking under beams, dragging her toward the far end of the wing. They crashed into a small side lab. Emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow on broken equipment. Slammed a console against the door, temporary barrier, not enough to stop them, but enough to slow them. Lyra leaned against him, panting. "You're reckless." He laughed, breath ragged. You said we fight together. She rolled her eyes, but a small, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. Don't die, Hale. He caught it and something inside him hardened. Not today, not here, not her. A sudden vibration shook the floor. His visor scanned the room. Red lights flashed in the darkness. More than 2 hunters. The enemy was surrounding them, cutting off escape routes. We're trapped, Lyra whispered. Fear tinged her voice for the first time. Not trapped, corrected Jawtight. We adapt, we survive. Her eyes met his. For a heartbeat, the world outside the lab didn't exist. Just the two of them, hearts racing, the hum of danger pressing close. Swallowed hard, you trust me. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Always. The first hunter roared again, claws slicing the metal wall behind them. The second followed, breaking through the temporary barricade. Stood, placing himself between her and the oncoming monsters. Blood trickled from his brow. Bruises blossomed across his ribs. Every bone screamed. But he didn't move. He wouldn't move. Because some things were bigger than survival. Protection, devotion, humanity. And he would give everything, even life itself, for her. The hunters lunged. And Hale smiled through the pain. The hunters slammed into the side lab with terrifying force. Metal screeched. Sparks flew, pressed himself in front of Lyra, shielding her as debris rained down. As she cried, "You'll get killed." He ignored her, firing blindly at the approaching monstrosities. Bullets ricocheted uselessly off armored plates. But each shot drew attention. One hunter faltered, caught in his path just long enough for Lyra to unleash another pulse of energy. Her power was incredible. Radiant threads of white light wrapped around the hunter's limbs, freezing them temporarily. But it wasn't limitless. Could see the exhaustion creeping across her face. Sweat and blood streaked her cheeks. Her hands glowed faintly, trembling under the strain. Lyra, he said, voice gruff but calm. We need a plan. We can't keep this up forever. She shook her head. I can keep them back, but you're the only one who can get us out. Swallowed, every inch of him ached. His ribs burned with every breath. His vision blurred at the edges, but he nodded. Then I'll make it count, just trust me. Her violet eyes softened. I always do. The first hunter recovered, roaring, and lunged toward them with terrifying speed. Met it head-on, swinging his rifle like a club. Metal collided with metal. Pain shot through his arm as the hunter swatted him aside, but he caught himself, rolling just in time to grab a jagged shard of broken metal from the floor. He stabbed upward, aiming for the creature's neck joint, the only exposed part he could see. Sparks exploded. The hunter shrieked and staggered backward. Lyra used the moment, sending a wave of energy slamming into the second hunter. It roared, claws scraping the floor as it tried to regain balance. Good, gasped. Now follow me. He grabbed her hand, limping toward a small maintenance hatch on the side of the lab. The corridor beyond was dark, narrow, and littered with rubble, perfect for evading monsters that relied on speed and strength rather than cunning. They slipped through, crawling and hopping over fallen beams. Behind them, the hunters smashed into the lab, too large to follow. His chest heaved. We're not out yet, far from it. Lyra glanced at him, her energy dimming slightly. I didn't think anyone would fight like you do, like humans. He smirked weakly. Funny, isn't it? You fight with power you barely understand. I fight with nothing but stubbornness and a sense of who's worth protecting. Her laugh was soft, a flicker of light in the darkness. Stubborn, yes, very human. They moved through the maintenance tunnels, shadows dancing on the walls. Strange, alien machinery hummed quietly around them, leftover remnants of Solary's experimental labs. The air was thick but breathable. Stopped suddenly. His visor picked up movement ahead. 2 smaller, faster scouts had spotted them. Their crystalline masks glinted in the dim light. Ambush, he muttered. Figures. Lyra stepped closer. Then we fight together. Grinned despite every muscle screaming. Together. The scouts lunged, swung the metal shard, shattering one mask. Sparks flew. Lyra channeled her energy through the metal support beams, sending electrical arcs that fried the second scout instantly. For a moment, silence, just them. Their heavy breathing, the dim glow of emergency lights. Then faintly, a voice. "Princess Lyra, your protection is admirable." Froze, her father's old advisor. An ally? No, the voice was mechanical, distorted. From the shadows ahead, a figure emerged. Taller than the hunters, its frame black and impossible but humanoid. Its glowing red eyes locked on them. The last one, the leader. Lyra's hand trembled on his arm. "I've got you," he said firmly. "No one touches you, not them, not anyone." Her gaze softened, full of something he hadn't seen before: trust, vulnerability, and something that made his heart thrum wildly. The leader stepped closer, towering over them, claws clicking against the metal floor. It spoke again, cold and precise. Humans always so fragile, yet so persistent. Raised his shard, stance ready. Fragile, yes, but also unstoppable when we fight for someone we care about. The red glow of the creature's eyes deepened. And then, without warning, it lunged. Shoved Lyra behind him, bracing for the strike that could end everything. But in that instant, something deep inside him, a human stubbornness, a spark of courage, and a devotion stronger than any weapon, ignited. And he realized he would not let her die. Not now, not ever. The battle for her life, and for something greater than survival, had only just begun. The creature's claws slammed into the metal floor with a deafening roar, raised his shard again, bracing against the strike. Sparks erupted where metal met metal. Pain shot through his shoulders and arms, but he didn't falter, not while Lyra was behind him. Lyra's hands glowed bright, threads of white light flickering over the walls. She tried to slow the leader, but it was relentless, almost as if it could anticipate every move. As she shouted, panic creeping into her voice, "It's too strong." He gritted his teeth. "I know, that's why we use brains, not brawn." The human instinct kicked in. Every training session, every narrow escape, every moment of despair and courage fused into one single thought: protect the princess at all costs. He lunged forward, dodging the creature's claws, using the shards of metal on the floor as impromptu weapons. Each swing, each strike, chipped away at the monster's armor, buying precious seconds. Lyra's energy was flickering, sweat streaking her face. "I can't hold it much longer." Didn't answer, he didn't need to. He could feel it. The moment had come to risk everything. He spotted a panel on the wall, exposed wires, broken circuitry. If he could throw the leader into it, just maybe. "Lyra, step back," he yelled. She hesitated, then nodded. Her hand brushed his shoulder briefly, a touch that sent a jolt of warmth through him. He couldn't dwell on it now, not when death itself was mere inches away. Charged, the leader swung, catching him on the side, sending him sprawling. Pain exploded in his ribs. He gasped, staggering to his feet, blood streaking his shirt. But he didn't stop, not when she was at risk. He jabbed the shard toward the panel, the metal scraping against circuits. Sparks leaped into the air. The leader screamed, a chilling, mechanical scream, as electricity arced over its body, causing it to stagger backward. "Now," Lyra yelled. She focused every ounce of her strength, channeling her energy into a concentrated pulse. The electricity from the panel and her power combined, striking the leader full force. Its eyes flared red, then dimmed slightly, and it stumbled, nearly losing balance. Didn't hesitate. He ran, grabbing her hand, dragging her through the narrow maintenance corridor, deeper into the observation wing. Behind them, the sound of the leader recovering filled the hall. Heavy footsteps, metal screeching. It wasn't defeated, not yet. They reached a spiral staircase leading upward toward the observation deck. The structural integrity was shaky, the metal rusted and battered from the attack, but it was their only option. Step by step, and Lyra climbed, moving as quickly as they could. His ribs screamed in protest, every movement painful, every breath a struggle, yet he refused to stop. Each step was a promise: "I will keep you alive." Lyra glanced at him. "You're bleeding." "I know," he said, forcing a grim smile. "A little blood never stopped a human before." She shook her head, but there was admiration in her violet eyes. Something unspoken passed between them in that brief glance. Something beyond words. At the top of the staircase, the observation deck opened up, a wide expanse with shattered windows overlooking the stars. The sight should have been breathtaking, barely noticed. All that mattered was the hunter leader, now fully upright and charging toward them from the staircase below. "We need a plan," Lyra whispered, desperation in her voice. His mind raced, the deck was unstable, the windows could shatter, but there, an emergency escape pod, old but functional, attached to the side of the station. Risky, but their only chance. "I have an idea," he said, gripping her hand tightly. "We run to the pod, I distract it, you launch us, got it?" She nodded, eyes wide. "But—" "No buts," he snapped gently. "I'm not letting you die here, not ever." The leader roared from below, its glowing red eyes fixed on them, unwavering, unrelenting. Took a deep breath. Pain shot through his chest. Every muscle screamed, his vision blurred, yet he stepped forward. For the first time, Lyra saw not just courage, but devotion. Not just skill, but human stubbornness, human strength. And in that moment she realized, this man, this human, would give everything for her, even life itself. The hunter leaped and ran straight into the impossible. Barreled toward the edge of the observation deck, every step agony in his ribs, every breath a razor in his lungs. Behind him, the hunter leader roared, claws tearing into the metal floor. Sparks showered like deadly fireworks. Lyra stumbled beside him, energy flickering, exhaustion painted on her pale face. "I don't know if I can." "Don't think," he barked, grabbing her hand and pulling her along. "Just trust me, that's all I need." She met his gaze for a heartbeat, and he saw it, trust. Complete, unwavering, and something else, something deeper. A bond forming in the furnace of fear and courage. The emergency escape pod hung from the side of the station, swinging slightly in the vacuum of space. Its hull was scratched, aged, but intact, just enough. "We can make it," shouted. Pain radiated through his body, but adrenaline drowned it out. "Come on." Lyra took a step, then faltered, wobbling on the fractured deck. The hunter leader's roar boomed behind them, a promise of death. Without thinking, slid to her side and wrapped an arm around her waist. "I've got you. I'm not letting go." Her breath caught. He said, voice low, fierce. "No time for fear, only action." He pushed forward, dragging her, limping, stumbling over debris. The hunter leaped again, aiming for them with precision-engineered claws. Felt its shadow over them, a wall of impossible death. Then he heard it, the sound of something giving way. A loose support beam under his foot snapped, tilting slightly. The deck groaned, metal straining, the world threatening to collapse beneath them. He swallowed hard. "Just a little more, come on." Lyra's hand found his cheek, weak but steady. "Not now," he snapped gently. "We survive first, feelings later." They reached the pod, yanked the door open. It squealed but yielded. Lyra scrambled inside. "Go," he shouted. But as she started the launch sequence, the hunter smashed through the deck. Its claws skidded mere inches from its legs, tearing chunks of metal. Sparks rained down. Spun, slashing with his shard, aiming for its limbs. Metal screeched. The creature faltered, but it was relentless. Lyra's voice pierced through the chaos. "Get in." He hesitated for a heartbeat, one heartbeat that could cost him everything. Then, determination hardening his chest, he leapt. The pod shuddered as the emergency sequence engaged. The outer hatch closed with a hiss just as the hunter slammed against the observation deck, screeching in frustration. Inside, Lyra pressed the manual override. Lights flickered on, screens hummed, and collapsed onto the floor, gasping, pain consuming him. "You risked your life," Lyra whispered, kneeling beside him. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them against his chest, energy flowing, stitching cuts, easing bruises. "All of it for me." Smiled weakly, teeth gritted against pain. "For someone worth saving always." Her eyes brimmed with tears, violet light shimmering in them. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said, voice rough. "Just survive." The pod shuddered as it disengaged from the station. Outside, stars stretched into streaks of light as the escape pod accelerated away. His ribs burned, blood trickled from his brow, but he felt alive. and he had kept her alive. Lyra's hand lingered on his. "You're impossible." He laughed softly, pain and relief mingling. "I'm human, that's our specialty." She smiled through her tears, brushing hair from his face. "Human and brave, reckless, stubborn and brave." He chuckled, then coughed, pressing a hand to his side. "I did what I had to do." Her eyes softened, "And I'll remember it always." The pod sailed through the dark void, carrying the human and the princess far from death, far from the hunters. For the first time since the attack, there was silence, a fragile, hopeful calm. But even in that calm, knew the galaxy was not done with them. Allies and enemies alike would test them again. The weight of responsibility pressed on both of them. Yet in the quiet hum of the pod, one undeniable truth lingered stronger than fear or exhaustion. No force in the universe could break a human who chose to protect someone they cared about. And he would do it again, 1,000 times over. Lyra watched him, heart swelling, realizing something she had not understood before. Humans were fragile. But in that fragility, they carried a courage that shone brighter than any weapon. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and in that infinite darkness a spark of hope burned. The escape pod drifted silently through the void, the stars stretching endlessly outside. Slumped against the wall, bruised and battered, every breath stabbing through his ribs. Lyra sat beside him, hands trembling slightly as she tended to his wounds with faint, glowing energy. "You really are impossible," she murmured, her violet eyes locking with his. He managed a weak grin. "Not impossible, just stubborn. Humans specialize in that." She shook her head, a small smile breaking through the tension. "No, it's more than that. You risked your life for me, and you didn't hesitate, even when it could have killed you." His chest ached, pain and emotion mingled in equal measure. "That's what you do when someone is worth saving. You just don't think about yourself, you think about them." Lyra's fingers brushed his cheek. "I never realized humans could be like that, so selfless, so strong, and yet so fragile." He laughed softly despite the throbbing pain. "Fragile, yes, but when it counts, that fragility can turn into something unstoppable." For a long moment, they just sat in silence, the pod humming steadily as the stars outside stretched into streaks of light. The danger was behind them, but the bond forged in the heat of chaos was indelible. "You saved me," Lyra said softly. "Not because of duty, not because of orders, but because you chose to, and that means more than anything else." His eyes met hers. "I didn't save you because I had to. I saved you because I couldn't not. You're important, not just a princess, not just a target. You're you, and that's enough." Her lips trembled. She swallowed, then whispered, I'm glad you're human." He smiled faintly, pain and pride mixing. "And I'm glad I have someone worth fighting for." The pod's sensors beeped softly, signaling proximity to a nearby Allied base. Tried to stand, but his ribs screamed in protest. Lyra caught him immediately, supporting him with steady hands. "Don't rush," she said. "You've already done more than anyone could ask." He nodded, leaning into her strength. "We make a good team, huh?" Her smile was small but genuine. The best, humans and perhaps stronger together than apart. They floated through the last stretch of the void, approaching the base. Lights appeared on the horizon and relief washed over both of them. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had endured, together. The pod docked, collapsed onto the floor, exhausted beyond comprehension. Lyra leaned over him, placing a hand on his chest. "You're alive, that's what matters. I need you alive." He looked up at her, eyes softening. "I will be. As long as it means protecting you, I'll survive." She touched his face again, almost reverently. "You didn't just fight for me, you fought for hope, for humanity, for everything we could stand for. You embody the courage of your people." He smiled faintly. "Then I guess you're stuck with me." Her laughter was soft, a relief-filled sound that echoed in the small cabin. Yes, I think I am." Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, vast, cold, and dangerous. But in that small escape pod, warmth lingered, courage lingered, and the bond between human and princess lingered stronger than any weapon, stronger than any threat. had risked everything, not for glory, not for medals, not even for orders. He had risked everything for her. And in doing so, he had proven something timeless. Humanity's strength was not in technology, not in numbers, not in armor, but in courage, devotion, and the willingness to stand for what mattered most, no matter the cost. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. "You've changed how I see the universe," she whispered. "Not just me, everything." He smiled, brushing a hand through her silver hair. "Good. Maybe humans aren't just fragile after all." Her lips curved in a small, knowing smile. "No, you're the opposite. You're extraordinary." Chuckled softly. "Extraordinary, huh? I guess I can live with that." They sat together as the stars streamed past the windows. Two beings from different worlds, different species, bound together by courage, devotion, and a promise to protect each other, no matter the darkness ahead. And the galaxy, cold and indifferent, had no choice but to watch. Because one human, brave, stubborn, and utterly devoted, had proven that even in the face of impossible odds, love, courage, and humanity could shine brighter than any threat.